Okay, so Ryan and I are gonna talk a little bit about evolution and just talk through the theory, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about what our thoughts are on it. So Ryan's gonna start.
Let's go. Okay, so I just want to start off by saying that in Islam we're not against knowledge, we're not against science. Yeah, and Hassan wants us to discover things, and we're not against discovery, we're not against diamond, we're not against these things. So the theory of evolution is one of these things that is controversial. Okay, so I'm just gonna start off by saying, so one of the things that is
I'll make sure to time out after 15 minutes, okay?
Okay, I'll try. So the first thing I want to talk about is the evolution of monkey to man. So two of the main evidences that they use is that the DNA between humans and chimpanzees are 98.8% similar. And they also say that there are fossils that are found that are between humans and chimpanzees, and that these prove that humans and chimpanzees evolved, right? Thing is that when they took the study to come up with the conclusion that 98.8% of the human DNA is similar to chimpanzees, they actually excluded 35% of the DNA strand. Like they took a fraction of a chimpanzee strand, they actually took 1/1000th of a chimpanzee strand, and they excluded 35%. And then they used matrices, and they used websites. They're called BLATs, that assumes صحة evolution. It assumes that evolution is true. And then they came out with a number, the actual number that came out, that is a similarity between humans and chimpanzees, is 70%. But they only took a fraction of it. They only took the differences that are cause of substitution, and they came out with a number 98.8%. And the way they did that was So what I'm just trying to say here is I actually don't really care about the numbers. But what I'm trying to say is that they're not actually trying to show us the objective facts. They're just trying to change the facts to prove evolution. Okay. So another important evidence that they use for evolution is whale bones, and they say that that vestigial structures in the back of a whale pelvis are proof that whales evolved from land mammals. And the thing is that in 1881, a scientist made the discovery that these structures are used in whale mating. And then there was a study that said, new study turns a long accepted evolutionary assumption on its head, finding that whale pelvic bones play a key role in mating. So, but up until recently, so up until June 6, 2016, there was a book that was taught in schools that said the skeleton of a baleen whale contains pelvic bones. These bones resemble those of other mammals, but are only weakly developed in the whale and have no apparent function. So what they're saying in 2016 is that there are bones in the back of a whale that have no apparent function, but in 1881 they had found a function for them. So this proves that they're just trying to they're not actually giving us the objective facts. They're just changing it to prove their evolution. And they're using circular reasoning. They already have the assumption, and then they take the assumption that evolution is true, and then they just they don't take the objective facts that were already found to prove that evolution. This is my conclusion out of the research that I did. I already said that. So it's too far. So it's
Okay, so basically our point out of all of this is that The reason that they use circular reasoning and the reason that they really want to prove that evolution is true has a lot to do with the history of the West and religious rule. So in Western countries, their historical experience under religious rule has been very oppressive, and like under the Christian church, like knowing how to read and doing experiments and any advances in science were really looked down upon. And so, Zach son, he says that the enemy of your enemy is your, this is a known thing, that the enemy of your enemy is your friend. And so these kinds of, during the Romantic era and the age of like enlightenment and science, there was a lot of any sort of advances that that went against or kind of rebelled against the church, like theory of evolution, they were embraced a lot. And so that's the reason why theory of evolution is it's really appealing, and that's the reason why when we kind of it's such an attractive theory, and that's why they use they're biased to want to include it. To want to have it be true. And so that's why a lot of the evidence that we see, like for example when it comes to the whale bones, and how even though they made a lot of studies that showed, or they found that these weren't actually vestigial and useless structures, and it took them a while to change that in the books. And so the reason why we study it so like it's so true is partly because the historical, like how we really want it to be true, or the West really wants the theory of evolution to be true, because it rebels against this like their oppressive rule under the church. And so, like we said, Islam is different because the Muslim world's like experience with religious rule is different when it comes to science and like scientific advancement. So under the Khulafa and under religious rule, we actually saw a lot of scientific advances. And so that's why we're not against any theory or any scientific advances, but we only believe things that are proven true, 100%. And so a lot of the facts that they use to support evolution the end.
Barakallah, reward you for this research. Barakallah, let's turn it over to Laila. I'm gonna grab your slides over here, Laila.
Go, Laila!
لا take your time, Laila.
Like the back, it's like...
Quick, Laila. Yeah, Musa. You can advance with it.
Go,
Alright,
Laila!
so I'll be talking to you about something called intelligent design. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so what is it? So it's basically the theory that life cannot have arisen by choice and was designed by some religious entity. So this is really what I think we should probably be believing in. Okay, so like they said in the previous presentation, that there have been a lot of scientific discoveries, and most of them have been proven true. And I really think we should trust them. But if there is something that turns you away from your God, I don't think that's really the right thing to do. And in this case, human evolution. So they're talking about basically something called Darwin's theory in modern biology. Now the foundation of that theory is natural selection, which is basically, we all came to be by random mutations and mistakes by nature. there's a definition up there. And so they try to exclude God from any of this, saying that it was all, I don't know, random mistakes that have happened to us. We did that naturally on our own without any problems, and that basically led to human evolution and us coming from monkeys, which I don't really trust in anyway. And so I really think the key logical problem for this theory of evolution is the claim of randomness and the purposelessness. I think I said that right. The claim that things have evolved from ancient cosmic soup by chance and random factors such as mutation and climate conditions is just, I don't know, doesn't make sense. Anyway, and then in addition, unearthing billions of years of Earth history is extremely complicated. It's also destined to remain a tentative and incomplete task, given the immense amount of lost empirical data and immense time span we are looking at. For the purpose of faith, one can defer empirical conclusions to scientists to the extent that they are carefully collected and honestly interpreted the data to the best of their ability. That's what they were talking about, that scientists really tend to like twist their words and not really like what they said. Anyway, okay, so next slide, sorry. Yeah. So that's also really one main point that I really wanted to bring up was the fundamental problem with natural selection is that it cannot be referred to as a creator because it didn't create anything. The idea of Darwin's theory was to explain evolution. Okay, it does not explain how we were created in the first place. There are theories like the Big Bang and so on, but how does that, the question I put up there, like where did the organic material come from that turned into DNA and RNA? So, yeah. And then, so in conclusion, I really think us as Muslims, we should be willing to take the lead in such questioning and rethinking of the theory. And finally, the challenge for believers today is not about the theory of evolution, just the theory of evolution, but rather about like developing a science that is honest, open, and enriching and beneficial. We need a science that allows us to discover and celebrate the wisdom and diversity, creativity, and the beauty that's constantly being reflected in creation. And okay, and we should really like, I think this is just lame, I'm sorry, okay. So it's bizarre, the idea, like it says up there, I really think it's just, we could not have done this on our own. Nature, Mother Nature, whatever you want to call it, it's not gonna, no, it's not possible, logically, yeah, that's it.